Issue 256 Reboot. After Amy hoped Sonic missed her, a bunch of panels are wasted, and then suddenly something flying crashes in front of them with Sally in it. Wait, really? I thought the next time we'd see her, she'd be in the Death Egg, and Sonic would be storming the Death Egg in the Arctic to get to her. Instead, the audience reuniting with Sally after Archie Sonic doesn't even remotely resemble how she'd be rescued in Archie Sonic. So she didn't get the same treatment that Bunny did, because she just handed it to us. She says that she's glad Amy's here because she thought she didn't get her distress signal out, and Metal Sonic's threatening her. That's what that's supposed to be? Okay, a blue figure surrounded by fire, now it makes sense. It wasn't drawn well enough at first to be obvious. But come on, it comes off as so convenient that Sally got to escape the Death Egg on her own without Sonic needing to save her and do anything to earn getting her back. Archie Sonic Online did a much better job with this. It's so weird to me that I'm seeing so many different freedom fighters at once going on missions on their own without any bodyguards when they usually don't have any special powers or even weapons to defend themselves. It seems like a stupid idea for them, and they weren't always this reckless. Also, Amy got warped in front of the castle, and yet Metal Sonic's still here. So it looks like in this instance, the reboot is a clear downgrade because in this universe, the heroes were too stupid to think to give Mobatropolis a force field generator. So Metal Sonic can get into the city whenever he wants. If that's the case, then that completely destroys the believability of the series. There's no way Eggman wouldn't have nuked the city, or at least sent a bunch of missiles at it every chance he got, or sent a ton of robots constantly, or sent his egg army after it. I mean, if he's ruling the world, then he would have a ridiculous amount of army members, which would completely overwhelm the heroes so they wouldn't be able to defend the city. Sally naturally complains that she wishes Amy brought more backup, since it's Amy, and she seems to be showing her wrists to Metal Sonic, while blue blade-like things are in front of it somehow. Like she's really awkwardly trying to fight that way, somehow. Because just having her outright have a sword would be too simple. It'd be too easy to understand to just have her have a lightsaber in her hand. That was supposed to be her weapon? It's hard to tell what it's about from just the first panel because there's so little in it. But this looks like a fucking insult to her. How can she fight like this? There's no way she'd agree to this instead of simply holding a weapon. But maybe her idea is that she thinks the weapon will be dropped by her at some point, and this way it's impossible? A bow would be much smarter though. Amy hits it away, and when Cream ran up to Bean to get his help, it was immediately obvious that Bean and Bark wouldn't help because they're designated as villains by the writers, and therefore not allowed to help the heroes. I mean, because, they're wanted criminals here, and Bean arbitrarily says they're only allowed one adventure with them, or something. Huh? He should have just stuck to, we have to run away quick because we're wanted criminals, and more importantly, it's Metal Sonic. He's a huge danger to them with how fast he is. The chances are pretty high that Bean's bombs wouldn't have their explosion be large enough to hit Metal Sonic, and that the explosion might even hurt one of the heroes in the process if it's big enough, which is a very good reason for why Bean shouldn't be around the heroes. He'd actually be a hindrance if he got unlucky, and he's less dangerous to them as an enemy then. So we should have just been told that to make this look less confusing and arbitrary, only happening from the meta logic that they're supposed to be the bad guys, and it'd be too lucky for us if they were shown intriguingly helping the heroes again. Instead, we just see Cream calling them mean, because they aren't written to explain that they're naturally scared of Metal Sonic and of getting arrested, like would keep things simple and not as frustrating. Bark could have explained that if Flynn had made the arbitrary decision to keep Bark mute because it was an easy excuse to not give him any dialogue, because he was too lazy to write any. In his other M comic, Bark talked just fine, so I liked him there. Why can't he talk here? I guess I was supposed to be focusing on Metal Sonic being invested in how dangerous he is. But I don't have much reason to, because one, I'm too distracted by the annoying writing, which wouldn't be the case if Bean and Bark were arbitrarily teleported to Mobius right beside Amy when that's not their actual home. So there's too much to talk about. And two, I know that the heroes aren't going to be killed, or even injured, because that would require guts. So the tension is completely artificial. It was obvious that it was right from the start because realistically a robot as fast as Metal Sonic would kill them all really quickly because it can move at the speed of sound and has sharp claws. This is why it's ridiculous to have anyone but Sonic fight Metal Sonic, and this is why that never happens in the games. Oh god, it would be embarrassing if the games' stories were usually better than this comics. So Metal Sonic is forced to act like a complete moron for the sake of not killing all of them effortlessly with a spin dash, or V Maximum Overdrive attack. Why isn't he surrounding himself with fire and flying in a circle with them? Even though Cream almost gets hit by something and he swats away Cheese, I have no reason to take him seriously, because if he was fighting in a remotely logical way that I'd expect, it'd be way too dark. I hope Archie Sonic Online won't have this problem when he shows up again. I remember him not being really stupid there, and that was because he was faced with people who were a decent match to him, like a powerful wizard who froze him in ice, so he was too busy defending himself at close range to start moving fast and being lethal. Okay, if that's the case, I suppose other people than Sonic fighting him could make sense to not get dark if they're all ganging up on him and he was always so busy fighting them at close range with melee attacks that he was never able to try to build up speed and do a spin dash. Even then though, can't he surround himself with fire and fly anytime he wants? It was cool to see him use the black shield from Sonic Adventure 2, which blocked Amy's attack. As far as I can remember, I haven't experienced Flint's Archie issues in forever. This might be the first time he's ever used the black shield in actual story instead of just being constrained to multiplayer. Maybe he has used it before, like in Worlds Collide, and I forgot because the scene was so forgettable. I hope a lot more abilities from SE2's multiplayer will show up next, to make the characters more competent than usual, and make them reach their true potential. Obviously none of them should be able to freeze time like in the multiplayer, because that would be way too overpowered for a story. It just makes me wonder why they don't take down Eggman that way. But projectile attacks could be impressive. Like Amy could send hearts at her enemies like in SA2, and they could be explained to be made of force fields. Sonic could use Sonic Wind. Knuckles and Rouge can make people dizzy, like using Black Wave. I'm guessing none of that is actually going to happen, because that'd be cool. And he cares way more about making the characters make mistakes all the time, be idiots. See, every part of the Mecha Sally arc. So why does Metal Sonic get the preferential treatment? Why would only he get his multiplayer ability? Why is only he made more competent than in the games, when he's a boring character with no real personality, even if he is cool in theory? He blasts an orange laser from his chest, another recognizable ability, and apparently he only used the black shield really briefly because Amy was still in the air at that point and Cream needed to fly and catch her to save her from the laser. Sally asks where everyone is, reminding Amy that she's supposed to be guarding the Sky Patrol. Why in the world is Metal Sonic flying away from them when he's surrounded by fire? Why doesn't he just fly towards them? Of course, that'd be because it killed them, so he has to be an unbelievable idiot instead. But in universe, he has no reason to do this. And yet Cream tries to have me believe that this robot's worse than tough. The robot didn't tell us, or even have a thought bubble, saying that his real mission is to go fight someone else, like King Acorn, and so that's why he's trying to move away from them. In fact, somehow, the next time the heroes attack him, he's just standing there facing them instead of having long since gone really far away from them with his V-Max Overdrive attack, which you'd think would be faster than sound. So instead, Cheese flies into Metal Sonic's head, embarrassing him, somehow not injuring himself, as he just stood there the entire time without easily attacking them, even though the girls all clearly telegraphed their attack of him when they ran towards him. You'd think he'd just meet their charge with a punch. And the same logic for Cheese being in pain from Metal Sonic's hands swatting him away should logically mean that he'd get injured from getting smacked into Metal Sonic's metal head. But nope, somehow I'm still worried about his well-being. But apparently he's invincible. Maybe he has a lot of rings. But why him and not them? If Chao were invincible, they wouldn't care that you attacked them in the Chao Garden. Although, I guess they care because it's the thought that counts, since you never see them visibly injured in the Chao Garden. So Amy hits Metal Sonic in the back, but I'm just wondering how he got so incompetent. This is barely better than Metal Sonic's getting destroyed too much to the point where they decide to just have one Metal Sonic. Please ignore Captain Metal. Because at least a quick death to a spin dash, or a whole bunch of spin dashes at once, made a lot more sense than this, where there's a dragged out fight, and Metal Sonic's the slow as snails idiot the whole time who gets humiliated by Cheese the Chow and Amy Rose. Wait, why does Metal Sonic have a Burst shield. What the hell? Why overcomplicate things? Just keep to the black shield. Well, at least this didn't defeat him. I forget if they had a text box telling you what the V maximum overdrive attack was called when he was flying in the air surrounded by fire. It would be really confusing if they were expecting us to believe that the V maximum overdrive attack was called burst shield all of a sudden. That would be really confusing, like to anybody who's done any research on what his abilities are called. Suddenly, some brave-looking civilians run ahead, and one of them naturally tells Sally to get back and let them handle this. On the one hand, they don't look like they have any weapons, unlike the citizens of Furville who at least had axes, so that's a downgrade. So they look completely stupid thinking they can fight Metal Sonic. At least Sally has some weapons, even if it's really confusing, solid energy from her wristbands that she somehow awkwardly tries to fight with and magically changes the shape up to suit her needs. What, did they read her mind? This is the most complicated, convoluted weapon for a character that I've ever seen. You can tell it's by Flynn. Wouldn't a laser blade be way simpler? I mean, she'd have to be really close up to someone to hit them with these things. Unless she could summon really long things to swing. It'd make more sense for her to use her fists at that point when not fighting robots that would hurt her fist from the impact. I can only assume that she summons little force fields, and that's what she's hitting with, because solid energy is impossible. So let me get this straight. Sally has a force field, but not the city. And even then, she doesn't literally have a way to surround her entire body with a force field to protect herself better. Even Bunny could never do that. What idiots. You know, wouldn't it make sense to have her fight with the scepter? Because it'd be a royal scepter and she's the princess. Her having a sword of acorns would make more sense. The ugly looking character at least calls Sally Your Highness, implying that she's finally got the respect you'd expect a princess to have. But then she gets interrupted and ignored when she orders them to focus on evacuating the civilians. At least that's what it looks like in the panel because she got interrupted. Turns out she got interrupted with them being attacked. Metal Sonic flies away with a laser shooting out from behind him. It's kind of hard to tell what I'm looking at in this crappy art. And these guys are all lying down or need help up. Because I guess they were burned, even though they barely look injured. Their clothes are the only parts of them that look burned. Why in the world did Metal Sonic retreat? He's retreating from them? This action scene made no sense. What in the world was he thinking having Amy Rose and Sally and Cream the Rabbit fight Metal Sonic? The only way they could ever survive was to have terrible writing. At least the guy says that they failed Sally. So again, they respect her as the princess. That's good. In Archie Sonic, she basically lost all respect as the princess after the king returned to power. And even Jeffrey was treated as higher ranked than her. And then Flynn made a stupid democratic council that made things even worse. I guess he got rid of that for the reboot. But since he must have been really attached to the Council of Acorns if he didn't get rid of them way earlier, and even thought they were a good idea at all, I think he only did this to finally try to make it up to the fans who were calling out the Council of Acorns. And there were so many they couldn't ignore them this time. It was like an author-saving throw. And at least that tries to make the reboot seem like an improvement, along with Knothole being there. But I'm just confused that this didn't happen in Archie Sonic a lot earlier. I'm not the only one who hated issues 197 or 224, which the Council of Acorns ruined. So maybe he's responding to the fan backlash from that, but I'm just assuming things so far. Maybe there is a council. But the king would be depressed if he wasn't really in charge and people were ordering him around. And people wouldn't be giving Sally disproportionate respect for being royalty if people inexplicably overthrew their royalty. So after Sally says that Metal Sonic gives Sonic a run for his money when it was cowardly and humiliated by these people, so how can I take him seriously after this? And she's not a very good audience surrogate because nobody is calling these guys out on being idiots. Suddenly Sonic shows up and we see him standing on the robot. I really didn't think the story was going to be like this. How many times have I assumed that something simple and logical would happen and the story ends up being completely different? With everyone else, Sonic met up with his friends in the place they were having their missions. But here, Sally's not on the Death Egg anymore, even though we saw her there. Why would I think she'd have been able to go faster than Metal Sonic? Is her flying aircraft thingy from the start faster than Metal Sonic at his fastest? Why doesn't the city have a force field generator? What was he thinking removing that? Sure, to create tension because the civilians get put in danger, but you know where he could have that happen? Anywhere else. Any other town than the ones the heroes live in, that would be a giant target for Eggman to blow up in the middle of the night. From what I've heard, he doesn't like Sad AM, but he's making the same mistake as Sad AM here. I don't see how this downgrade is worth Sally having confusing weapons that seem worthless right now, and her finally being treated with the respect I'd expect, so average is not very impressive. I just can't believe the city doesn't have any kind of defense system. Really? Really? Rotor wouldn't have made laser cannons for the military to operate? Instead, the military is a bunch of idiots who run a dangerous robot with no weapons. They don't even have ray guns. What story of Flynn's doesn't have complete idiots in it? Try to find it. I think it'd be harder to find ones that don't have any stupidity. Maybe the reason I assumed I'd see Sally in the Death Egg next was because it would tell me why on earth she was in the Death Egg in the Reboot universe. What was she doing there? Sally lampshades at Sonic's timing was both perfect and maddening. Wait, it is maddening. Because considering how fast Sonic is, why did he take so long to show up in the story? Why did he even come here? I guess he got the distress signal in the Sky Patrol. But again, if he moves at the speed of sound, there's no way he would have taken so long to show up. Even a random fan could tell you that the story should have been rewritten to have him be there from the start. Sonic tells Metal Sonic to race him, and inexplicably, he runs off with Sonic, instead of continuing to fight everyone around him, focusing on the weaker targets. Well, to be fair, those weaker targets humiliated him, and it's smarter for him to fight one person, because it's easier to handle. It's just weird that he obeyed Sonic's order. This would make sense if Metal Sonic talked or had a thought bubble, the latter of which there's no excuse for not being there, that explained that he's so desperate to prove himself to Sonic that he'll literally agree to any competition with him. Sonic could challenge Metal Sonic to a chess game and he'd agree to it. That makes me smile just at the thought. It's kind of weird that Sonic Boom didn't do anything like that when the comedy potential with Metal Sonic was always there. He wants to prove he's superior to Sonic in some ways. And maybe they'd still be seen as taking him seriously if he kept being silent and therefore menacing. I'm not saying he should have stupidly one-dimensional villain dialogue like Captain Metal where we hate him, or like he had in Sonic Heroes. That'd be boring and add absolutely nothing. I'd just like if I knew his motives. Because there's no reason to outright race Sonic. Isn't his goal to kill him? Wouldn't he just run at him, grab his neck and snap it? Sonic sure is lucky he doesn't do that obvious simple thing that I was even wondering why Scourge didn't do. He could grab him and break his leg or arm, but Sonic's so fast he'd avoid his attempts at grabbing him. I wish they just explained that. Or showed it. Out of nowhere, instead of admiring Sonic for coming to save the day, Amy complains that Sonic stole all the glory after they did all the work. First of all, this is just making her no better than Sally. Except somehow Sally's happier than she is, and actually focuses on the fact that he got Metal Sonic out of the city and protected people. It makes sense that Amy is the immature, selfish one, because that's how modern Amy always is, and that would contrast her with Sally. But still, I said she's like Sally because she's showing a bad dynamic with Sonic. She's being ungrateful to him instead of respecting him. And I thought the whole appeal of Amy, besides swinging a hammer like anyone could do, that explained why she was shipped with Sonic, was that she was Sonic's fangirl. But if she's gonna be like this, like she's no different than the rest of his friends, then what's the point? This is out of character for her. Wouldn't she be smiling and cheering for Sonic? She tells Sally that she's usually right. Your first instinct might be to think of this as the creator's pet moment for Sally, but he did get her roboticized. So the writer is trying to establish Sally as a smart character, but then she uses weapons as close range as this. Even Antoine's sword looks more practical and respectable. A truly smart character would use a projectile weapon, like a ray gun. I'm guessing she's still going to have a lot of stupid moments that become far more memorable than the time she was smart. Wait, what the fuck? Now Metal Sonic's talking? First of all, I guess they changed their mind about refusing to let Metal Sonic talk, which was the case in Worlds Collide and made him a really disappointing, boring character. I was looking forward to seeing what he'd be like in that crossover. This better stay the case for the rest of the comic. Second, why didn't he talk before Sonic showed up? Is he shy? Maybe he only respects Sonic enough to talk to him. I guess I can understand him saying nominal, speaking with big words like a generic boring robot, because he's a robot. So that's their simplistic thinking. But when Metal Sonic was talking in Archie, for the most part he talked just like Sonic, and that was noticeably more enjoyable. He's a robot based on Sonic. Why in the world would Eggman program him to talk like this? That just means he's not at the potential he could be as a Sonic robot. A biplane flies in the background as Sonic teasingly asks if he was hurt too much and annoys me. And I'm still confused about Metal Sonic actually racing him when he doesn't have to. He doesn't say that his only mission was to fight Sonic, and even then, he'd be staying in one place fighting him, not flying away from the town. Like if you ask any old regular robot, they wouldn't race him. Wasn't his entire mission to fight Sally and keep her from getting to Sonic alive? Yeah, it was! So he must have independence and not really care about following Eggman's orders. At least not when he could be proving himself to Sonic in every possible way instead. When you'd expect a serious person to find racing a waste of time. He says that he's faster than him. So I guess that was supposed to confirm that he's racing him to prove himself. But that wasn't very much talking. Sonic then shows how carefree he is and truly confident he is by saying that he doesn't really care if Metal Sonic is faster or not. Huh? Whatever happened to the Sonic and Sonic Riders who was obsessed with proving he was faster than Jet at airboarding? And that was just airboarding, not even a foot race. I guess this makes sense. But if Sonic was truly confident, he would just insist that he was faster and genuinely believe it. Metal Sonic wasn't using his V-Maximum Overdrive, which really would be faster than Sonic. So I guess he was planning to use it earlier and was just trying to prove he was faster than him without that. He says that he's just a distraction while Tails gets a missile lock, and a missile hits the ground, but Sonic actually looks intimidated when Metal Sonic flies through the smoke. Oh, never mind, only his head and arms are left. So while I was expecting to see an actual action scene between Sonic and Metal Sonic, that didn't happen. And he says he wants to get better than Sonic, but again, just says it in an overly formal way that isn't Sonic-like at all. Isn't it good enough for us that he looks like a robot and is evil? That contrasts him from him enough. I don't outright need him to talk like a stereotypical robot too, which is just cliche instead of refreshing and interesting. Sonic condescendingly tells him to keep saying that and crawl back to Eggman, saying that he's got bigger things to handle than him. Like what? He's the only robot here, but he's talking about the bullshit memories nonsense, as he tells Tails to hurry back to the city and check up on everyone, calling him Buddy. Gee, it sure was a good thing Tails didn't hit Sonic with that missile when he was right next to him. His missile lock must be pretty accurate. Good thing he knew how big the explosion from the missile would be so that he'd know that it wouldn't spread to Sonic when he didn't expect that. Then Sonic picks Sally up and hugs her, shedding tears, which he's allowed to do. I guess the reason he didn't do this last time was because he knew he had to focus on Metal Sonic first. Sally's surprised, and instead of thanking him for the affection like an actual friend, she just asks what's gotten into him while smirking, and never at any point thanks him. Yep, that's Sally. He says that she looks good and he missed her. Well, I do like that her shorts are black instead of her wearing nothing but blue. And there's something black below her blue shirt thing. Black and blue look good together. But Sally smirking at her own friend looks so out of character. Then Amy clears her throat, which at first I interpreted as jealousy because he somehow likes Sally more than her, but then I remembered that she said Sonic better miss her. He puts his hand on his shoulder and lies that he was worried about her. I have no reason to believe he was telling the truth there. And he asks where she was. I like that she got all bashful and could only manage to say that Blaze says hi. But this is the first time I've ever seen an actual, obvious Son Amy chip tease, and that's not the X comic, that seemed to validate the accusations that he's got a Son Amy preference. Before that, I was doubting that because I haven't seen anything like this since issue 172. And even then, she didn't really have dialogue during this that for once makes her actually sympathetic with her crush on Sonic, when most of the time she's just an annoying brat who comes on too strong. Well, I do prefer this characterization for her, and I can't help but like this moment. It's so rare for Amy to be seen like this. And it made Sonic look like he was intentionally manipulating her like a Casanova because of his expression. Like he knew that putting his hand on her shoulder and saying he was worried about her would make her not mad anymore in an instant, when I never saw him worry about her. Well, he manipulated her one time in Sonic X, too. Amy doesn't remember the Genesis wave anymore, which, again, there's no excuse at all for Sonic remembering it either when it never happened in his universe. He's just as much of a main character as Amy is. We cut to Sally hugging the king. Surprisingly, that's the only panel where she's in the castle. And then Amy hugging Bunny and Tails shaking Antoine's hand more tamely as everyone goes to the Sky Patrol. See, I'm trying to say everything positive too, but I feel like I'm just pointing out really minor things in this case. So everyone goes to the Sky Patrol, and Sonic's introducing it to Sally for the first time. And she fortunately compliments him on it. And they're in Sumerca. Sumerca. The uncreative name for South America is so bad that it takes me out of it every time. I don't understand how they're in South America now. Wouldn't the Sky Patrol have flown to them in Mobitropolis and then they'd go in there and immediately have this conversation? Why would they wait until the Sky Patrol was all the way in Sumerca again to say this? Also, since when is the Mystic Ruins in South America instead of right next to Station Square in America? I think they just went all the way to Sumerca. But why? Wouldn't it take off and fly to them? Wouldn't that be a lot more convenient? How the hell did everyone get here? I guess Amy, Sonic, Tails, and Sally all fit on the biplane and didn't fly off the entire time it was flying here. Sonic asked Nicole if she could give both Amy and Sally memories of Archie Sonic, which are just gonna fade away, so there's no point. Again, this plot point is bullshit. How omnipotent is she? I was surprised when she said she could possibly do it. I thought they wouldn't give Amy back memories at all because they're all gonna fade away the instant the memories arc is done. So that's probably like an issue from now. And nothing interesting has happened for Amy to remember and react to. She says she has to share the circuit with both of them. And then the ridiculous Genesis Wave energy will be spent after it conveniently went into her of all people for no reason at a specific point in time for no reason. I recommend skipping the panels with all this crap. Especially Sonic's recap. It was cringy when they said they were freedom fighters and acted all positive and said they could do anything. Really? Their lives are so easy. They're never gonna get injured. They have such an easy time fighting. They may think they're not having an easy time, but it's not like they really have to struggle. So how am I supposed to find this inspiring? Sally remembers the bullshit Flynn put her through and cries feeling guilty, and thanks them, and Bunny hugs her. And that's it. Archie Sonic Line definitely did this better. This honestly comes off like Flynn doesn't care. Nicole then tells them to launch the Sky Patrol now, expecting us to believe that the world didn't just get rewritten. Because that would make too much sense. She finally shows up looking like she has an actual body. And then the bullshit comes in that I remember hearing about. She expects us to believe that the planet that was affected wasn't just their reality. Do you have any idea how gigantic the space-time continuum is? This bullshit also kind of happened with the Ultimate Annihilator. Ken Penders expected us to believe that the barriers between zones were weakened when a device fired in one planet that was only programmed to erase Eggman from existence. And then Dan Slott came in and expected us to believe the barriers between every zone was weakened, and Buller has only reinforced that idea. Nicole expects us to believe that the entire multiverse collapsed in on itself. And Eggman says the same thing. It would be a lot more likely that Nicole simply can't detect the universes beyond this one because the barriers between zones were strengthened. There's so many universes out there that's already hard to believe that one Genesis wave would be able to affect the entirety of one, let alone an infinite amount of universes. That's impossible to swallow. The Super Genesis wave had 7 emeralds powering it, but not the Master Emerald, and not literally every Chaos Emerald in all of existence. And Eggman would have to intentionally make his Genesis wave have there be only one universe, which he never said was the plan. He wanted to recreate all of reality. And in Worlds Collide, Sonic was talking as if he was going to be able to return everything back to normal, even though he only had personal experience with one universe, and therefore could only think about one universe. Not to mention he only had personal experience with a small part of his universe, and yet somehow he expected to be able to fully restore all of his universe. So clearly it wasn't limited by his own personal experiences, which meant that he should have been able to restore all of the universes. You'd think that the Chaos Energy Spear that he summoned when trying to recreate his reality would have naturally also included all of the universes. Like, even if he wasn't thinking about them. Because if he had to think about a place for it to get recreated, then he wouldn't have thought about every place. Like, in the entire history of the universe, including the bottom of the ocean or Mars. I can imagine the laser firing through it because Eggman would destroy tiny parts of it that represented other universes, but it's not like it destroyed every part of the Chaos Energy Sphere except a teensy tiny part of it, right? I think I would have remembered that, because Sonic would say it was really tiny. What are the chances that the zone that Worlds Collide Sonic was familiar with was going to be the one that didn't get destroyed by Eggman's laser? If we're supposed to believe that the laser firing at the Chaos Energy Spear was why supposedly we're not going to hear about other universes in the Soul Dimension anymore, because the laser destroyed them, then wouldn't it have also been possible that the laser would destroy Worlds Collide Zone? Sure, it's lucky that it didn't. Well, it is one zone, so it could be easily missed. It would be a lot more likely that Nicole simply can't detect the universes beyond this one because the barriers between zones were strengthened. And so, whatever signal she's sending out that would bounce away from another universe would just bounce back at her because it would hit the barrier. I've compared the Ultimate Annihilator to the Genesis Wave idea a lot, so it only makes sense that the two would parallel each other even more. They're both overpowered devices with no reason to work that have nonsensical side effects for plot convenience that were made up by problematic writers. One of them weakened the barriers between universes, so it's only natural that the other one strengthened them, which would create the illusion that there are no more universes after this. They're also both made by Eggman. Also, the Soul Dimension still exists, so that's pretty suspicious and weird, isn't it? How can they legitimately say that they've gotten rid of the parallel universes idea because it's by Penders when they still have the Soul Dimension around? Wouldn't they not be able to have the Soul Dimension anymore because it's another universe? At that point, if they're truly following what Archie told them to do, wouldn't they have just had the Soul Dimension be a part of Sonic's dimension and have Blaze's world just be a part of Sonic's universe? Realistically, what makes the Soul Dimension so special? So it got missed too? Also, I wonder if Mega Man had more issues after Worlds Collide. If he did, then his universe wasn't destroyed either. So that's 3 universes. All the universes associated with Worlds Collide are still around, because the characters in them were there, I guess. It's just distracting meta logic, and I refuse to buy that. What makes more sense? That Eggman somehow managed to destroy almost every universe by accident? Or that he made it harder to travel to other universes? It already made no sense that Sonic saw portals to other universes showing up everywhere in Archie Sonic. So, this makes more sense. The barriers between universes being strong makes a lot more sense, because that's probably how it is in real life. That's why portals don't show up in real life. Nicole isn't literally omnipotent, so it makes more logical sense that she would have some things she can't do. Some limitations to her. And it's already impossible to swallow that she'd have been able to detect the presence of other universes whenever she wanted before this point. Which she'd have to be able to do to expect that she could detect beyond her reality. I don't understand why she would know that the entire multiverse collapsed in on itself. Something I like, though, is that at no point are the characters in the actual story saying that every parallel universe was gotten rid of, or every world besides ours and Blaze's is gone. It's just an assumption based on the fact that the parallel universes are a Pender's concept. All these characters are saying is that reality was rewritten, which we were already expected to believe before, so why are they emphasizing it in universe? They're not saying anything that they didn't already know. But they're not saying that they live in the Prime Zone, and the Prime Zone was rewritten. For all we know, every other world still exists. Like the one of Archie Sonic Align, which is much better than this nonsense. Eggman and Nicole both think that the Genesis Wave is threatening to tear the planet apart. Because Nicole can magically detect when the planet is about to split apart. Because she was programmed to be able to send signals into the planet like that for no reason. And Sonic says to Nicole that they save the world all the time. But wait a minute, since when do they have to save the world? Eggman's already ruling most of the planet, and he's about ruling, not destroying. Is he referencing the fact that Eggman tried to use doomsday devices? But since he's about ruling instead of destroying, it should be obvious that he would just be bluffing, trying to intimidate people into giving him power so that he won't destroy the world. When really he'd never do that because he'd destroy himself too, and everyone would know that. Unless he's talking about other villains in Eggman, he shouldn't be saying that he's saved the world because there would never be any actual danger of Eggman destroying his world, unless he went insane. It's such obvious meta logic. The writer's only writing that because it's a generic, easy thing to write because he's the hero. He would have been better off just writing, "We're heroes, so we can handle it." The story ends with us being shown the planet shattering, which logically would kill everyone and leave the planet uninhabitable the moment it happened, because all the planet's oceans would fall into the core of the planet and destroy the water cycle. And realistically, the planet would pull itself back together from its own gravity because its pieces are so close together. But it doesn't, which Flynn doesn't explain away. Now this is supposed to be because all of the energy of the Super Genesis Wave is being concentrated on the planet itself. But meta logic wise, it's just a Sonic Unleashed reference, when it's way too late to have an Unleashed adaptation. And the Exodus chase proved you don't need to do that to have an excuse for the heroes to travel the world. Why aren't they looking for Ixis after he ran out of the city? The real answer is that Flynn was too uncreative to think of an excuse for world building that the games didn't already do. Obviously, Eggman firing a laser to the planet and waking up a giant monster that emerges from it makes more sense to shatter the planet into giant pieces than the convoluted nonsense of the Genesis Wave, where Eggman somehow made a reality-altering machine in the span of one issue and powered it with 7 measly Chaos Emeralds, and just 1 emerald before that seemed to have the exact same effect. Why would the Genesis Wave cause this to happen? That is some glitch. He didn't program this, and more importantly, this didn't happen any other time he used the Genesis Wave. It didn't happen to Mobius around the time that Sally was roboticized. And it didn't happen in Worlds Collide either. I guess I'm supposed to buy that only the Super Genesis Wave can do this, because it's powered by 7 emeralds. And I hate that the text in the final panel tells us that this might be the end, because we're not stupid enough to think it would be. The reboot's just started, and that would be too dark. They've already established that the comic is too afraid to have any of the characters get injured and have the writing make no sense to enforce that. At least the text after it says that it might just be the beginning. If I was supposed to find this tense and cool for this comic, they failed. Like, this comic is not self-aware at all. The characters are looking scared, but everything's gonna be fine. Although it makes sense for them to be scared, logically. This was by Ian Flynn, and wow, that was impossible to take seriously. Metal Sonic somehow doesn't kill Amy, Cream the Rabbit, and Sally, who's inexplicably relying on really close-range blue force field weapons when a laser blade would be way simpler. I can't believe they didn't even have to go to the Death Egg and rescue her. How could she escape from the Death Egg on her own in a flying thing that was somehow faster than Metal Sonic? I really expected Sonic to go to the Death Egg and earn getting Sally back. But instead she was just handed to him. I was baffled to see that the hero's own city didn't have a force field generator to protect it from any random robot showing up. He could send a robot with a bomb in it to this place. Realistically, a robot who can spin dash at the speed of sound and set itself on fire whenever it wants would completely destroy all of them in a fight, and only Sonic would be a match for him. I could kind of forgive the fact that he's fast, because if someone's insisting on fighting him close up, especially if he's being ganged up on, he won't be able to try to run away or get into a spin dash to build up speed in the first place. He'd have to focus on just using melee attacks like any other robot, and at that point, the heroes could just keep attacking him. The problem is, he's also got something as overpowered as the ability to surround himself with fire. Why doesn't he do that all the time and never let up on it? Then it'd be impossible to get any hits on him without burning yourself. And he'd just be able to keep attacking the heroes while basically invincible. Then he can build up speed whenever he wants. With a power like that, even Sonic would have trouble. I hope it gets explained that he used up so much energy that if he tried to keep it up, instead of only using it in short spurts, he'd shut down from using too much energy. And maybe that's canon to the games, considering that whenever he does have that power, he doesn't use it all the time. He uses it in Sonic CD, and then he goes slow for a while, like he has to conserve energy afterwards, or he'll burn up. And him pushing himself too hard was why he lost the race to Sonic when he first showed up in Archie. But it's a different continuity now, so it needs to be explained again. The entire time, I was just frustrated by what a complete idiot Metal Sonic was being, and how the heroes were expecting me to take him seriously, when he had no reason to run away from them like a coward. Just to stand there and do nothing while they charged him in a clearly telegraphed attack, when Sally's supposed to be smart. You'd think he'd at least put his fist in front of him so they'd run into it. Even I'd do that. There was no excuse for that. He would have fared much better in a fight with these girls than that. And I guess the only reason he agreed to race Sonic instead of simply running ahead a little bit to be alone with him and fighting him while staying where he was to prove he was faster than him. But Sonic clearly doesn't care, which proves that he's fighting a losing battle trying to prove he can surpass him because he'd never admit if he did, and he wouldn't care if he believed it. So he looks like an idiot. He had nothing to actually gain from racing Sonic and getting out of the city when his entire mission was to kill Sally. Somehow he got sidetracked? Why would he have the free will to decide to do that instead of still focusing on Sally? That's a huge glitch. You'd think he'd be unable to disobey his order without rebooting and doing what he wants. That's how he was shown to be in Archie just before Worlds Collide. That's such a common sense way to program a robot who has just enough independence to not have to rely on him for every little action, which would suck when he's not around or able to see what he's doing, and is relied on for stuff that would require him to think and act on his own. The only reason the hero succeeded was because the villains were unbelievably stupid. And so were the soldiers. Or at least I guess they were soldiers, because the artist was too lazy to give them military uniforms like Archie Sonic did just fine. So they just look like regular civilians who somehow think they can fight Metal Sonic with no weapons. What kind of military or militia wouldn't even have projectile weapons to fight with? I guess the reason why the fight took place in the city was to increase the tension because civilians had to be gotten away from the danger. But they were never even mentioned until the very end, and the only ones that got hurt were the ones telling Sally to stop fighting. So that didn't achieve the desired effect that would have made it worth it to not just have it be on the death egg. Especially since I didn't think the comic had guts anyways. I was impressed that Sally was telling people to get the hurt civilian to the hospital and they were actually being carried away in a cot. Because they didn't really look hurt, just dazed. So the civilians are the only ones who can actually get injured, from what I'm seeing. It'd be depressing to see the heroes get hurt, but it'd make actual sense and make the villains a credible threat that make the tension actually exist. Which would make the action scenes engaging and keep you on the edge of your seat. Oh yeah, and stupid stuff happens after this instead of them just leaving it alone and not trying to pretend Archie Sonic is in the same universe as this. After Nicole's overpowered and comes to a hasty conclusion, it turns out the planet's been split into pieces by something far more convoluted than in Unleashed. I'm willing to bet that in the Mega Man comic After Worlds Collide, Mega Man doesn't have to worry about his planet being split apart. The rule isn't being consistent, so there's no actual justification for this. It breaks your immersion. It happens to this planet for no reason. Why this specific part of the universe and not any other? Why isn't Mars split up? Or the moon? Why not every planet in the entire universe if the justification is that the universe was rewritten? You know where the Super Genesis Wave Machine was? It wasn't anywhere on Mobius the last time it was being used. It also wasn't on Mega Man's planet either. It was in the Skull Egg Zone that Eggman created to meet with Wily. So why on earth did the Super Genesis Wave energy all come to Mobius at once to the point of bursting it apart when it was never on at all? It only briefly visited it to change its present and the memories of the people there. Even then, that doesn't actually prove it rewrote the past. It just gave everyone fake memories and changed the way the present appeared to be. So no one would know the difference. You'd think that if there was any one place the energies would come back to and burst apart after it was done doing its thing, it would be Skull Egg Zone where it started. not this unrelated planet, while conveniently ignoring Mega Man's world. Which I wasn't calling by its name of Earth, because that's what our planet is called. And he doesn't live here. Bottom line is, this story just frustrated me. Sally came back way too underwhelmingly easily to be satisfying. Logically, Metal Sonic would have beaten all these girls in a fight no problem. All he'd have to do is surround himself with fire at just the right time when they're close enough to him, and he'd be able to burn at least one of them instead of running away. He doesn't even have to have it on all the time to be too powerful for them to attack. He just have to do it at the wrong time and they get burned. So even making it so that he can only do it for a short burst isn't enough to balance the fact that he can surround himself with fire anytime he wants.